We've shown we are alive as a greater human embryo, but now in this video, we need to determine whether we are greater male or greater female embryo, whether we're going to become a greater boy or a greater girl. I want to just give a warning that I talked in the first video about how you have a paradigm and it's like a box. And people love to talk about outside the box thinking how great that is. But in reality, the box is sanity. The box is where all the rules are, the structure, the concepts that you're going to use to figure things out. And so we've been going very carefully and slowly through this whole idea of us being a greater embryo. And we have a greater umbilical cord already attached. I mean, so if this is your first video, you should go back and look at the other videos, because you're just going to say to yourself, this is just some pie in the sky stuff, but it's not. We're building a whole new structure for the concept of reality that allows repeating time, size, speed levels. And we've gone through the theory of everything in physics, explaining a lot of physics and stuff that translates from physics up into genetic or biological levels. And so we're laying the groundwork for this video. We've been laying the groundwork in this video series. But so you should go get caught up if this is your first video, because otherwise it's just going to seem too far out there. Okay, just for a quick review, though, what we've covered is that we are a greater embryo at the 6 to 8 week mark of development. And this is when in a human embryo you have about 8 billion glial cells, which translate to greater humans in our world, about 8 billion neurons, which have begun connecting together into the little embryo's neural network. For us, it's the World Wide Web and the internet. And what happens at this point in the little embryo is all electricity is negative. It's negative energy electrons. So the mother's negative electricity, as the brain of the little embryo begins to electrify, it's using the mother's negative electric energies. And so you have to think of us as being in a dual reality system. I'm going to get more to that in a minute, having a dual reality structure. But we have this new outer electric reality, the screens that we look at all the time, the whole internet, television, movie, the whole electric world is really a new reality. And then we have the old particle reality. Men dominated in the particle reality, but the new electric reality comes from our maternal set of chromosomes, and it's female dominated. And so this whole media world just eats away at all the power and dominance and leadership of men. So to stop the biological default process, there needs to be a very high energy, masculinizing event. And if you have a Y chromosome, if an embryo has a Y chromosome, and it does not go through this masculinizing event, it does not become male, then it will miscarry. And there may be partial levels where it can become gay or something like that, but then gay people in a natural setting do not procreate. So you become something that cannot pass on your genes for the human race. It's like saying if we fell out into the solar system, then we want to move on up into the Milky Way galaxy. But you are not accepted up to the next larger level. We may not right now be accepted up into the solar system unless heterosexual men stop this default process. So that's what we're really going to talk about, is this default process and the giant elephant in the room question right now, which is, do we have a greater Y chromosome? I think the answer to this question is unequivocally yes. But let's start with this diagram here. A lot of you will remember from either the movie or the book, The Da Vinci Code by the author Dan Brown, where he talks about the male blade and the female cup. And you can see in this diagram, the way you read, this is absolutely critical here. The way you read this diagram is from the top of the diagram for both the male blade side and the female cup side. And what that's saying is the maternal energies always push for absolute democracy. The top of the cup is flat. That's like the water. That's like the internet, where you can't really have any one force or faction. Everybody gets a voice. What can you do with the electric world? It is a natural total democracy, and the maternal energies bring these electric, democratic, full democracy energies. The blade, the sperm, the paternal energies work sort of like a military or a corporate structure. You have one leader, and his energies flow down to the men beneath them, and you have a command structure. And so you can think about the blade building the land and the cup building the oceans, the waters, and the rivers. Critical thinking and the left hemisphere of the brain, I think the left hemisphere is our maternal dominated hemisphere. The right hemisphere is the paternal dominated hemisphere in most of us. The critical thinking goes together with the science-based thinking, which is, again, I've used this example already, but if scientists look at the structure of an atom and they look at this solar system, critical thinking is going to focus on the differences between those two very similar objects, but at two different time, size, speed level. 99.9% of the mass in the nucleus, surrounded by these orbiting bodies. But there are differences from the way we humans see the solar system and the way we see an atom. So critical thinking is going to look at those differences and say they can't be the same thing. Conclusive thinking is thinking like a detective. It's looking at those two things and saying, yes, there are definitely differences, like that the electrons go in all kinds of different orbits and p orbitals and things like that. But we have these 8 planets that just orbit around in one larger, circle or rough ellipse, after another, all on one flat plane. So and some of the distances are slightly different and things like that. But a conclusive thinker is going to say, but they seem to be so similar, they've got to be the same thing. Let's figure out what are the areas where we see them differently, and start to try to work out how maybe being inside of a solar system where we don't see its electric energy. So maybe there's a p orbital going out to Jupiter and Saturn, and we just don't see it, whereas that's the only thing we see way down in the atoms is the p orbital. So conclusive thinking is sort of positive energy thinking. And I think overall the cup is the maternal side and the science-based side, left hemisphere, logic, mathematics, whereas the blade side is more the faith or religion-based side, along with the conclusive thinking and being on the right hemisphere. So next, let's get a physics basis for this idea of two connected realities. So look at this image here. It could be an image of anything. It could be anything. But if you have a subatomic particle, and the way the physicists explain this, if you take that subatomic particle and you take it through a 360-degree rotation and bring it, this is any particle with mass. So it's like quarks have mass, a greater embryo would have mass. So any particle that has mass that's a half-spin particle, and we've said now that this means you have these connected spheres. You have like an outer sphere, and then that's bringing all this pressure to create the mass of the inner sphere. Covered that in the last video. But so if this is a half-spin quantum mechanical particle we're looking at, we take it through a 360-degree rotation, it's going to come back exactly the way it was, except it's going to have a minus sign. So it's not the same thing. It's a negative version now of what it was. And then you have to take it through a second 360-degree reality to bring it back to its original state. So what that means is any matter particle, a reality is made up of 360 degrees. I mean, think of our human reality. It's 360 degrees makes up a reality system. So this is we're not making this up. This is a physics-based concept that a human has the brain with all this electric energy, and it obviously, as we see in our world, it creates this one whole electric reality. That's the negative reality. That's the negative energy reality, is the electric reality. And then you have the particle reality, which is the positive energy reality. So look at this next diagram. This diagram is expressing the idea of these two spheres, one inside the other sphere, but it's very hard there's something I want you to see. So I show it with a small sphere on the outside, but imagine that that's inside the larger sphere. So the larger sphere is the larger electric reality. The smaller sphere is the particle reality, the male-based one. The larger one is the maternal or female-based reality. The notion is that there's a halfway point where the energies could be halfway between the larger sphere and the smaller sphere. But remember, as we were studying the quarks, they either have 1/3 or 2/3 electric energies, plus 2/3 or minus 1/3. The idea here is either the male energies, to build a male being, they need to push up 2/3 of the way, definitely past that halfway point. I mean, this may be part of the thing is, as we've been going through this default, we may have had a lot of these trans people because we're not pushing up high. We don't have a strong masculine civilization anymore. The female energies have been pushing down too far. That's what's been creating all the trans individuals and, as part of this default process. So we need to reset all these energies, and then we shouldn't have as many of the trans people as we get going into the future. You should have strong male and strong female once again. But so the idea is either you push up 2/3 of the way, or the outer sphere is going to push down 2/3 of the way to create a definite female. Okay, next, I think I said in the thumbnail that I was going to show you the most meaningful diagram in all of human history. And you can see we're into pretty deep stuff here with all this. We're getting right to the root of how men and women are built and the embryonic process of how we become male and female and why and how these dynamics work. And so let me just lay the groundwork for this next diagram a little bit first. The idea, think for a moment that the bone structure inside both men and women needs to be more or less neutral. Think of it as basically a neutral entity. Then you've got the brain on the inside of the bone structure, the body on the outside, and imagine that both men and women have electric charge. We have simple electric charge to us men and women, but imagine that it's different. It's reversed in the two of us. And so here, looking at the diagram, in women have positive energy bodies. This is why they are able to produce children. Think about their positive energy bodies. Add one baby at a time into the world. It's a process of addition. An additional baby comes from a woman's body, and then another. But this is balanced by women having a negative energy brain. There's sort of like the electron energies that we're talking about here, these media energies. Women don't ever really stand up to this whole media electron structure. You can see in our world, like if you watch the show The View, those women are very highly negative about anything masculine, any kind of male energies, and they just eat away at it. And imagine if you go completely female, if Kamala Harris had won the election, if, you just get these female-based electron energies, and they simply just devour the male energies. And so women are sort of run internally to some extent. Their inner personality comes from this large fully democratic electronic media energy that sort of devours the core inside of them and turns it into a ring. It's like an outer electron ring gives a woman an internal ring, her vagina, and so she becomes a woman. A man has this internal core which pushes the energy up and keeps him male. And this, remember we mentioned chiral spin? You have helical spin, like the Earth is spinning to the west or to the east. Well, you could think of those two directions as male and female, but the chiral spins are what really make you, like definite heterosexual male or whatever. These are the time energies coming up from the core. And the electron then has these two metrics of whether it is male with helical spin and with its chiral spin. So heterosexual men are the only ones that are double male. Homosexual male would have male body but female chiral spin. A lesbian might have female body or female helical spin but male chiral spin, and a heterosexual woman is double defaulted. She has a female body and she has a female brain. The chiral spin is female and the helical spin is female. So the male brain is positive because men need their mother to carry them and to give birth to them. So they simply cannot just turn against the women. Instead, they solve this problem by forming a new relationship with the women. And so look at this diagram here. This is an idea of the new, what I call the mox neuron. And you can see it's taking men and putting men on one side of the river and women and putting them on the other side. The neutron energies need to work around the proton energies. So you'll have a heterosexual male Democratic section, a heterosexual male Republican section in the north there, and then a group that is independent, but it's the primary group that's not so much focused on these two political energies, but more about the relationship between the men and the women. So the neutron has to work around the proton energies because you're still going to have the proton energies. But you have to set up this neutron construct like this where the men are no longer competing against anybody else for their leadership. I mean, part of the way the men get killed out is all these female energies keep electing more and more women. Every woman goes, pro-gay, pro-lesbian, pro-everything like that, turns everything female. The men are losing all their leadership positions to more and more women. When the men have their own strong leadership section and they're only competing against each other, then that is how the men stop the default and protect and build a heterosexual male being. The way women are built, how in a traditional value system, women would grow up wanting to have children and being built to then care for the children. Well, here on Earth, heterosexual women, want leadership. They strongly want leadership. Gay men and lesbian women are two groups that are going to, if we sort of build Adam first, we have to stop and set up the men and figure out how to stop all this default and figure things out for the men first. So we sort of will spend a few years building the male side of the mox neuron. But then when we build the female side, women will be the leadership group kind of with, over gays and lesbians, sort of looking after, caring about their issues, working with them, more democratically than the men would. The men lay down the rules. But this is sort of how, when we build Greater Eve, gays and lesbians sort of go on their side and are part of the whole female construct, giving women this leadership that they want here on earth, freeing men from that so men can focus on taking on the responsibility of bringing the entire solar system into greater life, which, lots of other groups and people, everybody will be able to participate in that. But if the men, heterosexual men, do not stand up and take responsibility for that, we just are not going to, that's what the men have to focus on. And this is diffusive. This is men going from the earth up into the solar system to bring it into greater life. So men have this positive energy brain because they form the positive energy relationship with women. Women have the negative energy brain because they sort of just naturally, they don't kill with guns or knives or anything like that, but they just simply eat away at the masculinity, so that a woman cannot be truly female, really, truly a lush, true female being if she's filled with masculine energies. And right now, part of the problem is you can sort of think of it like men and women are batteries, and women have too many male energies. They are reverse defaulting. Women are reverse defaulting towards being too aggressive, too masculine, too angry. Men are forward defaulting into too much feminine energy. So men and women are not attracted right now. They're not having children. Everything is in a very low energy state. As we fix these energies and bring neutron energies into the world, it'll be like recharging the men into more masculinity and recharging the women into more femininity. But women, on the woman's side of the Mox neutron, there's going to be all kinds of serious, real responsibilities. Just like think of a family where a husband and wife, agree on the responsibilities. He may go off to work. She may do all kinds of stuff, caring for the house, the children, her home is her castle sort of. And, she runs a lot of the stuff with the home, but the man still comes home and, he has his role. So there's going to be a lot of complex dynamics. I think as we men go up into space, our nickname for the planet Earth is probably going to be the kitchen. So sort of a joke about, women down in the kitchen, but women are going to run there. You're going to have a lot of responsibilities for things that you care about: animals, climate change, cleaning up, polluted areas, fixing things up. And men will go out and do a lot of the big construction work and things, following, women's navigation and ideas and all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be a healthy new relationship that both sides will be happy with. And there will be plenty of men on Earth doing stuff, and I'm sure women, going up into space some. But we'll work. That's sort of, we have to work all that sort of stuff out. Men's bodies here have negative energy because we are protectors. We have to be hunters. We have to go out and find food. We're going to have to protect this solar system. So men have positive energy brains, negative energy bodies. So we're neutral overall. Women have positive energy bodies and negative energy brains. So they're neutral overall. Let me add another very important point here. Just as we're talking about this greater reality and our solar system being our greater reality, think about this, okay? We already looked at this chart right here showing how our solar system with 8 planets may relate to a greater oxygen atom by having these p orbitals that we discussed a minute ago. Well, think about this, okay? So let's say you have an egg cell for a woman. A woman is ovulating and she becomes pregnant. And right at the very beginning, as the sperm joins inside, it makes its way inside this big, it's a very small cell. The egg cell is a huge, about the biggest cell. And The sperm goes in and it joins inside there with this egg cell, and then it divides. But when it divides, did you know inside, it's still inside this big egg cell? The division was completely internal. Then it goes through a secondary division, and it's still inside. So now you would think there should be four of these egg cells, four of these early body cells, early cells for the embryo. Then it goes through a third division where there are now 8 cells, 8 of these cells. And then it's the next one where it sort of explodes out into beginning to build new cells. And this would be like the human race filling out. It won't happen as exactly as one and then a division, and then we'll start to go out to the moon, and then we'll go out to Mars, and we're going to start cooling Venus. We're going to take Venus is too hot for us to just drop down on the surface and start cooling the planet. So we're going to have to build equipment that we can lower down into the atmosphere of Venus, collect its greenhouse gases, and then send them off to Mars. So we'll probably practice that here on Earth. We'll start to cool Earth down once we've got, things where humans can live. We got the robots, we have the spaceships, everything. We'll start to send all this equipment off to Venus, and we'll start to cool down Venus and eventually terraform Venus. We'll use the greenhouse gases to heat up Mars and start terraforming Mars. Mercury is going to be a great factory planet. It's almost, they say, almost like the core of a core heavy metal object. So it's just massively full of all kinds of rare earth and iron and all sorts of elements. So it'll be a great factory planet for this solar system. Think about the furthest planet. It's called Uranus. Well, that may be sort of what it sounds like. Uranus is the digestive system. Saturn the rings of Saturn are about 99.9 or more percent all ice, and ice is oxygen. So if the lungs send oxygen up into the brain, some part of the brain is going to collect that oxygen, presumably like Saturn. That's going to give us all the oxygen we need for Mars and Venus and everything like that. So we can have oxygen there, nitrogen on some of the frozen moons. So as we go out into the solar system, what we're basically doing is the Saturn may be our pulmonary system, the lungs. Jupiter may be our greater heart or part of the digestive system or something. Neptune will be some big important part, cardiovascular or some other system. And I think when we begin to go out into the Milky Way galaxy, this solar system may be sort of unique in that it has all 8 of these different systems. And as we head out into the Milky Way galaxy, we may go to a lot of planets that just have maybe 2 or 3 planets or something. And so they'll be more, like one thing or another or something. Some of them may be big and we'll be, going out and terraforming the whole thing. But clearly, the goal is to begin to bring the entire Milky Way galaxy into greater life. This gets into these distinct time, size, speed levels. This may be an original insemination event here in this solar system for the whole Milky Way galaxy. But within this solar system, we're in a different time, size, speed level now. We're at a place where the little embryo is at a 6 to 8 week mark, and it's ready to go through this decision point of being male or female. If you look at still another time, size, speed dimension, this may not so much be a human dimension, but a cellular dimension. Cells have built up us humans. Imagine all the cells are sort of at a stuck point. And as we humans go through this separation into male and female, and this place where we're choosing to be male and form this new positive energy relationship with the women. This may be like a puberty function for the cellular level of life, which is a third dynamic, and this may all relate to some sort of birth in another dimension or something. So it gets very complicated, but that's a lot of what's all these things are tied together, but there's a lot of deep, powerful stuff going on at many different time, size, speed levels. And again, if you've looked at all the other videos now, I know I don't have all the details worked out on this stuff, but we're going to start to understand multiple connected realities as just, think about things, our old reality is just sort of getting boring. We need to have more stuff to talk about, more things to work on, more things just to energize the sciences, the academic world, the religious world. And so this is going to give us lots to chew on in the coming years. So in the next video, I'm going to go through these proofs of whether we have a Y chromosome or not. So that's what this has all been leading up to. We're going to talk about that in the next video. And then we're going to get more into really going into the greater fusion energies and the greater neutron energies after that. So thank you.